So today we're taking a little break from Amitabha because I received an email that I think is quite important. Also, just to let you know, there's been another school shooting in Texas. At least 9 people have died. Many more are injured. So, of course, everybody's sending their thoughts and prayers. And I wonder if Congress is going to do anything. So, we have to keep speaking up about this because it's not going to go away. It's not going to disappear. Somebody wrote, and Trump called Mexicans and immigrants animals this week, which he did. He was ranting, as he often does, and saying quite a paranoid vision of there's all these horrible people flooding our borders, trying to come in and ruin the country, and some of them are not people, they're just animals. And he later said he was referring to the gang members of MS-13, but of course MS-13 began in the U.S. It didn't begin abroad and come in. But in any case, this is what he spoke of human beings as. And then the person says there's also a video of a man in a New York restaurant verbally and viciously attacking Spanish-speaking workers. So I watched the video. Somebody had just taken what was going on. It was in a restaurant. This guy comes in. He looks young, 30s, 40s, and just starts screaming because some people in the restaurant were speaking Spanish, and some of the employees were speaking Spanish to those people. And he starts on this rant that we're in America, everybody should speak English, these people are probably illegal aliens, he's going to call ICE and have them deported, and why is his taxpayer money being used to support these people, etc., etc. And he is a New York attorney, not some uneducated guy, a New York attorney. Okay, so this person is asking about these two things. And he says, hearing and seeing these things, especially from a U.S. president, is heartbreaking. Although I am a white male, I feel it right in my heart, as though this hatred and ignorance is being aimed directly at me and all other humans who I love. I have many friends who are Latino. I am afraid and saddened for them. How can we respond and cope with this? How do we respond and cope with it if we witness such things in person, say in a restaurant or public place? Standing back in silence is not the answer, but attacking back seems inappropriate and ineffective too. It seems the haters and bullies want and crave the attention. What do we do both as citizens, and how do we protect our hearts and the hearts of all others? And then he put the links to the 2 videos. So, when he said, I feel it right in my heart as though this hatred and ignorance is being aimed directly at me and all other human beings, that's very much the way I feel. It doesn't matter who is being talked about. If you talk about one human being that way, you're essentially talking about all of us as being animals, or all of us as scumbags, or whatever you want to say. In terms of how to cope with it, if you're there in the situation, I think the person who videoed the thing in the restaurant, what he did was wonderful. He videoed it, he put it online, it went viral, people saw what was going on, they quickly identified, somebody was able to identify who the man was. his office in New York got tons of letters. There was a whole media thing of people saying, this is horrible. And, it got put out there, and he was, he was criticized and he was shamed. So thank goodness there's enough people in this country that are willing to do that and to say that and write back and oppose those kinds of things. So I think definitely videoing it and exposing it publicly is very good, in terms of confronting it. Of course, doing that is also what makes people so confused and feel so hopeless, like this person's doing. But, we've got to say something, and we've got to do something. And so, I have a feeling that this person's law practice is not going to be what it used to be after this, and that probably, hopefully, some of the people in his law firm will, see the damage it's doing them and do something, say something, do something about it in terms of him. So I think that's a very positive thing. I think us just about talking about this in public, and, of course here I feel like I'm preaching to the choir, but I'm hoping that, this is going out on our BBC, it's on the web, maybe some other people will think of, hear it and think about this kind of thing. And, in terms of Trump's remarks, it's, I found it just astounding. And, so many people are saying this too, that he doesn't even respect the office of the presidency and the image of the presidency and what it entails, the responsibility of being the president. And it's very sad. And he's not going to last forever. Thank goodness. Yeah. This is the time when we're really glad we have term limits on people. Okay? So, a lot of that, hopefully, just as he's undoing what Obama did, hopefully some of the damage he's doing we can undo in the future. But in the meantime, I think the thing is just to talk to people closer to the elections, have people sign petitions, work on the state level very often for some things because it's easier to get done on the state level. Speak to people when it comes time for the elections. As a church, we cannot advocate for or against different candidates, but we certainly are legally allowed to talk about positions and policies and bring an ethical perspective to that. And I think another thing that's very important is to talk about the value of ethical conduct in society. Yeah, and that this needs to be talked about a lot, again and again and again and again. And it needs to be modeled, not just talked about. Okay? So like you said, the bullies and the big mouths crave attention, they get it. But, also in terms of what we emphasize, what we speak about, what we put on our website, how we talk to other people, then we can also emphasize the opposite of this. And if we're in a situation where somebody is bad-mouthing somebody else quite blatantly or uttering bigoted or racial things, you can just say very clearly, very calmly, without insulting the other person, but say, I feel very uncomfortable with this discussion. And say, just as he said here, I feel that when one other human being is spoken about, you're also talking about me, you're talking about the people I care about, you're talking about all of this. All of us, I feel incredibly uncomfortable with this kind of talk. And then leave the situation. That is our own way of, making a private protest. And we're not criticizing the other person for what they're saying, because that they'll only respond in anger to that. What we're saying is, I feel hurt, by hearing this kind of talk, and letting the person know how that kind of talk affects us, And by implication, when we say, I feel hurt hearing that kind of talk, it implies we don't respect the kind of person who talks that way. But we're not saying that directly to the other person. Okay? So maybe they'll think about it a little bit. Okay? And they have to hear from people who have different views than they do.
Well, Venerable, in response to what President Trump said, what resonates with me is that Jews before the Holocaust were also denigrated as animals and rats.
Mm-hmm.
And what comes out of that is that when you deny the humanity of an entire group of people, you're given license to do to them whatever you would do to an animal.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's very concerning that from the words and the mouth of the president, there is license being given to the citizens to act, reflecting that what you're seeing in front of you is an animal. It's someone who does not have the rights of a human being. So that's the first response to that. In terms of what to do, I just came from California, where I witnessed the graduation of a significant number of Latino youth. In this particular university, 50% of the students who graduated were Latino. And they graduated coming from families who were disadvantaged, families who most of them worked in the fields, long hours, under very, very hard conditions, who made very little money, and yet they were there to support their child in graduating. These youth were graduating from in fields like engineering, chemistry, biology, natural sciences, mathematics, some of them with doctorate degrees, some of them with master's degree, the majority with bachelor's degree. So that's what we do in response.
Mm-hmm.
We educate our youth. So if somebody would like to show support for minorities, one thing to do is invest in their education. Another thing to do is to go out and meet people who are minorities, to read books that talk about the experience of minorities in this country, that reflect their humanity, their desire for improvement, both personal and professionally and educationally, so that they can see all of them as people, not as numbers, not as animals, not as aliens, but people who are contributing to this country in many, many, many ways.
Thank you. Very well said. This thing about calling other people animals and giving license then to do what you would do to an animal, which I wouldn't even do to an animal. This is also what militaries around the world employ. What gives the soldiers the feeling that it's okay to kill in the battlefield is you call the enemy animals, you make up slang terms for them and insulting terms, and then that gives the soldiers ostensibly the ability to overcome their moral hesitation to kill another human being. Of course, you may kill another human being, but you still feel rotten about it. Yeah. but it's overcome at least some of the resistance to it. Yeah. So I think this is yeah, I mean, this is a military technique since civilization began, and is just as bad as, what we usually think, oh, that's just the military that does it. What's alarming is now when the citizens and when the leaders are doing it. Yeah. And so I really agree with you about investing in the youth and investing in education, and bringing people into our lives. So this is, something that I feel that the Abbey, as a group of people who were doing our best to hold good ethical conduct, I think it really makes it more imperative for us to keep our ethical conduct really good. And then to speak about the value of that in society, not only how ethical conduct, makes us more peaceful personally, but how it affects all of society and the importance now in society and educating the youth in this kind of thing too. Okay. So when I spoke about that lawyer and I said it's not an uneducated person who made that kind of critical remark, what I meant by uneducated was not in terms of whether people have a degree or not a degree, but people who did not get educated properly in their families about proper values. Yeah, because we should not assume that people who have educational degrees have good values, and that people who don't have good values. There's no pervasion there. Okay? And so that was what I meant when I said that.
I wanted to add too, this whole thing about the New York attorney reminded me of back when I was at college. One of my good friends who was, he was my classmate who also had like a scholarship to study overseas, wrote racist comments on his blog. And then people picked up on that and went to town with it. It went viral and he was stripped of part of his scholarship. And I wrote a letter to the press, though, to say that I think while I do not condone his comments, I think making someone from the elite, like the whipping boy of the press, it also doesn't help us address the underlying racial tensions or what's actually going on. Mm-hmm. Like the fact that people in a certain position are not aware of race or class issues, there's deeper, it's not just one person. It's so easy to say, oh, he's the racist one who made these comments. But as his peer, I felt like I have those thoughts too. Or why don't we look at why the whole class is of one race? Like, do we need to talk about that? There's a deeper thing. So what I was raising was like sometimes the community policing through viral internet videos or things, it's just dealing with a symptom, I feel, and it can be an easy way to express outrage. But we still need to look deeper at, So yeah, maybe New York attorneys don't interact very often with peers who are of a different race. Why is that? We need to look at some of the underlying issues there.
Right. Yeah. So there's more to be addressed, but I think it's good to pinpoint those people. Because if you don't pinpoint those people who violate social norms and you just let them keep doing it, then that's condoning it. Yeah. So I think it's good to pinpoint them and say this is indicative of a deeper problem.
I thought of something too in respect to the situation of what you could do if you see such a situation going on. And one thing would be to go up and say something encouraging to the people that are being attacked and let them know that that's not the attitude of everybody. I remember I was on a bus in Detroit once, and this guy yells, "We got to kill all the honkies on the bus." And these three guys got up, and two of them went back and dealt with that guy, and one of them sat next to me, and I still remember what he said. He said, "Don't worry, man, we for brotherhood," which made me feel a lot better. And it was very appreciated.
Yeah. Good point.